everybody. Welcome to our webinar for the month of July. Sorry, I kind of forgot where we were. Summer's going by as a blur, but I appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today. And I'm thrilled to have Calvin Williams with us. Calvin is from Impruver Incorporated. And Calvin, I'll ask you a little bit more about background and everything. But the thing that really intrigues me beyond the discussion about how you can help companies achieve strategic goals is you got an awesome background that I really totally aligned with in terms of like lean and continuous improvement and helping organizations really achieve their goals systematically, whether they be operational goals or big goals within the organization. That's kind of the impression I get about your background and what you've been able to achieve in your 20 plus years. Is that a fair assessment?
Man, that's right on. And when you say 20 plus years, you make it sound like such a long time. But
man, I'm like at 38, so it's okay.
Okay, I feel better. I feel better already. So yeah, I mean, I think at the executive level, the emphasis on improvement. Everybody says, yeah, let's get better. Let's get better. At the middle management level, I think people want to get better. Even at the front line level, people want to get better. It's just that sometimes those three levels don't speak the same language and they don't work in sync as well as they should. So that's been a big focus of my career as of late.
Yeah, and I'll bet the really, the other interesting component, and I'll stop babbling and let you take the floor, but it is interesting, and I wonder if you find this as well, is we all want to improve, but doing it systematically and in a way that helps us really get at it versus just saying, yeah, I want to improve, kind of is where the magic is, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the alignment, right? Because everybody's got their own idea of what improvement looks like, right? Where, executives are saying, hey, let's improve the top line or bottom line. Middle management is like, let's improve compliance to rules and standards. And, the front line is let's improve working conditions. So when you have that level of sort of dispersion amongst the different groups, then everybody's idea of improvement is different and everybody's working in three different directions, right? And that's where different interests can sort of work against each other in a lot of ways. So yeah, and prevents real improvement from taking place.
And to the for the purposes of human performance, this isn't industry specific. What we're talking about is that this is like saying I want to be safe, or I want to be reliable, or I want quality. It doesn't just happen out of the blue. These type of strategies are applicable to any of those type of goals that people have.
Absolutely, yeah. Goal alignment, a goal achievement, even strategy, like even continuous improvement. Like these things are human conditions. So wherever you have humans, you're gonna have these challenges that we'll talk about today. So
awesome.
Yeah, certainly.
Well, Calvin, we'll turn the floor over to you, and just a quick caveat for everybody. Not even a caveat. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it is an invitation to make this interactive and focus it on your needs. So as you listen to Calvin share his wisdom, and when you have questions, please feel free to raise your hand, just unmute yourself and jump into the conversation or chat. And Bob and I will keep an eye on the chat box. And what'll happen is, if you don't ask questions, you'll have to endure Bob and I asking our naive questions. So that's the challenge for everybody. So Calvin, with that, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Dean. And yes, I'm really looking forward to a lively dialogue toward the end of today's presentation. So I'll talk for about 15 minutes. If you guys have ideas, have questions as I go through, please document them in the chat. Write them down, and let's save them for the end, and then we can open up the floor and we can have a full-on conversation with that. So Dean, Rob, hope that works for you guys. We good to go?
That is perfect. Thank you, Calvin.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm Calvin. I work with a company called Impruver. I'm the founder of the company, and today we're going to talk about a mechanism or a method or process we've developed that helps engage everyone in continuous improvement every single day. right? And this process is called Agile Strategy Execution. I actually wrote a book on the topic, which is available on Amazon. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. So more about myself to add to what Dean has spoken to. I've got about 20 years experience in operations, continuous improvement, more recent years, strategy execution and strategy management. I've worked for some really phenomenal companies, Mars, Nestle, Colgate, the U.S. military industrial base with a management consulting firm called A.T. Kearney, and Clorox as the senior leader of global continuous improvement, where I was helping to execute operational excellence throughout their 36 factory network, but also strategy execution and strategy management as well. And most recently, this past December, I released a book. It's called Fit, The Simple Science of Achieving Strategic Goals. And we'll dive into some of the concepts that are inside that book in just a moment. So the software company that we run is called Impruver. It's a high performance organization system which combines strategy execution, continuous improvement, and what we call autonomous performance management. So there's a disconnect between how we think about improvement. As we were talking before, there's multiple levels within a company, and those levels tend to have a similar mindset. At the C-suite level, we think about improvement as, oh, we have a strategy, we have these goals, we got top line performance, we got bottom line performance, and we need to execute our strategy, right? Got this big plan, we need to execute it. At the front line, by the time you get to the front line level, it's usually thought of as just regular improvement. Like, we need to fix this process. We need to, make these changes. And we often lump those into what we call continuous improvement. But the epitome that everyone wants to see is everybody improving something important every day. I would say that's more of an ideal. Some people just want to see other people improve something any day. But that's another conversation. The way strategy and improvement work together, strategy defines what's most important to improve next, right? Because there's a bandwidth issue and you can't improve everything now. So you got to decide what's most important to improve next. And those most important things should contribute to your goals as an organization. Both strategy execution and continuous improvement fail at an alarming rate. Right, there's a 90% failure rate for both of those, as cited by McKinsey, and I can also attest to this through my personal experience in CI. Right, and this is largely due to a single thing. Obviously, there's a lot of factors that weigh in. Of course, leadership plays a huge role in success and failure in any endeavor. But when it comes to the approach companies use, and this is an approach to leadership as well, there's something called the waterfall approach. If you haven't studied agile versus waterfall, you'll be an expert by the end of this presentation. But we'll just to give you a kind of overview. And the way I define waterfall is the inconsistent flow of improvement and lack of ownership and support. And we'll break that down a little more in a moment too. But the way most companies approach strategy and oftentimes continuous improvement is that they batch together a bunch of projects or objectives where you got multiple goals or multiple projects at once, and then you got long deadlines. You have to have long deadlines so you can get all 10, 15 of your projects, or you can meet all 10, 15 of your goals, right? The second piece of it is you have centralized management of improvement, where you got a few people that's driving improvement into or for everyone else. And the third piece of it is leaders as judges, where leaders sort of assign work or delegate projects, then they sit back, wait on results to come in, and then they issue a verdict. You pass, you fail, and so forth, right? So these three things are very problematic, right? They really lead to a level of disengagement from leadership in the tactical execution of goals and strategies and projects and things like that. So here's an illustration that shows how most companies execute strategy. Remember, I said 90% failure rate. Let me break down exactly how that happens, right? So what happens is at the beginning of the year, you got the airplane on the left side here. They create the annual plan. They say, hey, by the end of the year, we're going to be way over here. This is going to be our profitability numbers. These are going to be our revenue numbers. It's going to be our cost numbers. It's going to be our customer satisfaction, whatever it is they decide is their goals for the year, right? And then they say on some routine basis, we're going to have check-ins. Like, for example, we'll have a check-in in Q1, check-in for Q2, check-in for Q3, and then at the end of the year, we're going to be here. Then you start going down that path and reality strikes. Pandemic hits. Nobody saw that coming. High inflation, turnover, supply chain disruption, customer churn, tech disruption, God knows what else. By the time you pass Q2, that original plan is out of the window and it's like, let's just survive, right? Let's survive the year and we'll, at the end of the year, we'll create a new plan and we'll repeat this same broken cycle again. And they just stay in that same dysfunctional cycle year after year. Some of the outcomes of this, strategy or projects never get implemented. Projects get done, but the desired results are never realized or sustained, right? Or C, all resources are spent before anything is learned, right? You get through a whole year before you realize, oh, we're way off course. This is not good, right? Now let's try to make a course correction after you spent the whole year and the money, the time, and everything else, the resources to do what was done, right? Root causes here, just a lack of flexibility to disruptions, lack of focus on what's most important to improve, and lack of focus is major, right? This is a leadership issue. This is also a methodology issue. Low sense of urgency on executing strategy or projects, right? Once you get into firefighting mode, strategy game is over, right? You're not thinking a year out. You're not thinking 6 months out anymore. You're thinking a week out, the next couple of days. How do we get through the next couple of days crisis, right? The consequences of this are enormous. If you look at some of the headlines over the last 6 months or so, Bird laying off 23% of its staff. DoorDash lays off 1,250 people, right? Facebook and Meta and Amazon and a bunch of other ones just laid off tens of thousands of people. Even Ford laid off 3,000, right? This is symptomatic of working against a forecast as opposed to being agile and adapting to reality on the fly, right? You build these forecasts, we're going to need all these people. You go out and hire all these people, train all these people. It costs money to recruit these people, to manage these people, get them through the system, onboarding, so forth and so on. It's an enormous cash outlay. And then reality strikes and it's like, oh, yeah, our forecast was wrong. Now we got to make some other very embarrassing and unnecessary corrective actions, right? What I present today is this can all be avoided. Pilots, flying planes can teach us a very valuable lesson about agility. The plane in flight is off course at least 90% of the time. Weather conditions, turbulence, and other factors cause it to get off track, and often the plane arrives at the destination on time. This is one of my favorite quotes from Stephen Covey. He's the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. How is it that a plane can be off course 90% of the time and still arrive at the destination on time? And the key to this is to make micro adjustments, hundreds of them, maybe thousands of them in time. You got all the dashboards, you got all the indicators, you got everything you need to tell you, hey, you're off track, make the adjustment before it becomes a bigger problem, before it becomes a crisis, right? If you look at the chart from before, companies don't see that it's a crisis until the year is over and you look back like, what did we achieve? And it's nothing like what you planned. Agile strategy execution can help companies fly like planes, right? Even from the C-suite. So what is agile strategy execution? It is a simple mechanism through which companies set strategic goals and continuously improve. So let's dive into that a little more. If you look at the continuum over time of how companies have managed strategy or tried to become more systematic about how they drive improvement and execution of strategy, I would argue that continuous improvement and strategy execution are the same thing, right? So if you look at this continuum, on the left side, you've got no strategy execution, you got no goals, you got very poor execution, or no, you can't have execution if you have no goals, right? You have nothing to execute. So a lot of companies operate in that very primitive state. In the far right end of the spectrum, you got what we call agile strategy execution, where you have one goal defined per person at a time, all the way to the frontline level. Then you have weekly or daily improvement cycles. So you're improving very frequently, right? So you got everybody every day making improvements. In the middle here, you've got from no strategy up to lone wolf, where you got vague goals defined, you got command and control execution. This is the boss knows what they're doing and everybody else waits on instructions. The next step up from that is OGSMs, OGSTs. You might have heard of these, Hoshin Connery. OGSMs is objectives, goals, strategies, measures. OGSTs is objective, goals, strategies, tactics, or some variant where you got 3 or more annual goals defined down to the manager level, right? So you're getting a few more people involved. Managers are defining goals. And then you still got project-based execution, and it's waterfall style project-based execution. And from a review cadence standpoint, you got annual, if it's a better company, semi-annual, or at best, you got quarterly reviews. One step up from that is OKRs, objectives, key results, right? This is something that was developed at Google. John Doerr brought it from Intel into Google, and then Google made it big and famous. So in the tech industry, this is very, very prominent over the last 10 years, probably 10 or 15 years. And it's growing as well. But you're getting one step closer to everybody every day. You got 3 to 4 goals, annual goals per person. Now you're getting to the supervisor level, right? You're getting closer to everybody. Still project-based, still waterfall-based to a large extent, but you're getting quarterly or monthly review cycles, so improvement cycles. So it's getting closer to every day, right? So you're sort of inching toward everybody every day. Agile strategy execution is the mechanism that gets you all the way there. There's a very simple process that we call the FIT process that helps people, regardless of level in the company, regardless of education level, to drive systematic improvement. And what FIT stands for is focus on what's most important to improve, iterate toward the goal, and then track your progress along the way. Very simple. It's sort of a evolution of PDCA. And we'll talk more about how this simple mechanism fits into the broader construct of agile strategy execution in just a moment. But this is a very key piece of it. But before we do that, let's talk about the paradigm shifts of going from traditional approaches to strategy and continuous improvement to agile strategy execution, right? Batching objectives, batching projects, batching goals, everybody carrying, those key drivers of projects carrying 5, 10 different projects at a time to what we call continuous flow of goals and projects where you got to focus because you got to prioritize what you're going to deliver next. Let's focus on that. Let's get that done. Then let's move on to the next one. So maximize focus and alignment. When your boss is focused, it's easier for you to focus. That cascades from the C-suite all the way to the front lines. The next paradigm shift is centralized improvement management, where few people driving everybody else, to decentralized, where you got everybody every day, right? It's everybody's job to improve what's in their domain of ownership. But the key piece of there is you gotta also provide domains of ownership, which means some people have to relinquish control to other people. But what comes with that is that you own and you have to improve the thing you own. The third paradigm shift is leaders go from judges, where they wait for results and judge, to leaders as coaches, where they're personally invested in the success of their people, right? They are more like a football coach that's at the 50-yard line involved in the play-by-play versus the owner of the football team who is maybe in the skybox just watching and waiting for the game to end to see who wins. All right, so to break that down a step further, what ASE facilitates is a Kanban, or a continuous flow of strategy and execution. So at the team level, you have one challenge at a time. At the individual level, you have one goal at a time. Within each goal, you get one iteration at a time, or one improvement at a time. And leaders coach their employees where they help develop one skill at a time. So that Kanban, that flow of bigger strategic goals to individual goals to iterations or improvements against that goal, and then skill development as well. So it all just pulls through. And what it does is helps your organization transition from one on the left that's conflicted, dysfunctional, many goals, many priorities, many projects where people don't know what's really most important at any point in time, to one that's focused and aligned, where you've got one true North Star and everybody understands their unique role in helping it to happen. All right, let's step into the process itself. Like, how does this work? So every single person has three key elements within this process, right? A challenge, a goal, and then they have the fit process that we mentioned before. So the challenge creates the North Star for the organization. If you're the leader, if you're the CEO, or if you're a COO or VP of Ops, or even a frontline supervisor, if your leader hasn't provided you with a challenge, you set your own, right? This creates your North. Hey, this is what I'm gonna achieve in a year, right? I'm working toward this. And then you set a goal. And the goal is a little shorter in scope, time frame for scope, right? 6 to 12 weeks, right? So in this example, increase profitability to 25% by January 1st, right? So the goal should be in the direction of the challenge. And of course, your routine iterations that you're doing through the fit process is going toward your goal. So again, even within an individual, you have good alignment. That simple mechanism, if you think about it like an atom, can be used to build entire structures, right? So at the team level, the CEO, again, has a challenge goal, and then they have routine iteration. The CEO's goal would automatically cascade to become the challenge for their team. So they have a collective goal. Each individual person would then set a goal that's relevant to their organization, right? So COO might say, hey, given that challenge, I'm going to focus on conversion costs. CFO says, given that challenge, I'm going to focus on reducing raw material costs. HR might say, I'm going to focus on reducing attrition. So everyone has a goal that's unique to them, but it's also tied to something greater, which is the challenge as set by their leader's goal. So you can kind of see how it kind of ties the organization together to work on something that's most important to improve for the organization. So where that mechanism cascades all the way to the front lines. So at each level, the goal becomes the challenge. They set a goal for themselves. It becomes a challenge for their team. She sets a goal for herself. It becomes a challenge for her team, and so forth and so on, to the point where everyone in the company has a goal, a challenge, a goal, and they're routinely iterating towards something they can tie directly back up to what the company is trying to achieve. Everyone understands their unique role. What's interesting, and this is an excerpt from the book, is there's an underlying narrative of the NASA moon mission. And it talks about how everyone at NASA, there's like 500,000 engineers working on this project, right? But they have other people too, right? Including janitors. Everyone at NASA completely understood their unique responsibility in helping the U.S. send a man to the moon and back within the decade between 1960 and 1970. Even the janitor understood what their unique goal was and what their unique contribution had to be to make that impossible mission a success. And they focused on not only executing their base work, but also contributing toward that incredible mission that we had set for ourselves. So we'll talk more about the book in a moment, but so you may think, wait, I have a whole job, right? If I'm focused on productivity, I can't just ignore quality. I can't ignore safety. And that's true. So the way that works is balance is maintained by distributing goals. What tends to happen in a lot of companies is you have a few people who are drivers. They end up with all the projects, right? And everyone else is just either helping or maybe not helping so much, right? So what this is doing is saying, let's distribute goals and let's increase the organization's capability to execute goals, right? 92% of people never execute goals. They don't even have goals. A lot of them don't even have goals. But so what happens here is an individual has their thing that they're trying to improve now, but they are either sustaining or supporting all other important goals as well, or other important aspects of the business. At the team level, everyone is driving their thing, So everything gets improved. And again, that's achieved through distribution of goals. So dividing up the workload of driving improvement instead of leveraging up on a few, everyone owns a small piece. So here's an example. Chipotle had a growth strategy in 2018. Their challenge was to double its quarterly revenues. I think they were at 2,400 stores. They were trying to get to 5,000 stores or restaurants. And their stated strategy, they did a shareholder meeting, and this was their strategy, right? We're going to become a more culturally relevant and engaging brand. We're going to digitize and modernize the restaurant experience. We're going to run great restaurants. We're going to enhance the company's powerful economic model. We're going to build a great supporting culture at the company, right? And through this, and over the course of, I guess it's been 5 years more or less, they're now at $9 billion in quarterly revenues. So they've practically doubled their revenues and almost doubled their stores as well. So how does this cascade in? How is this managed through agile strategy execution, for example? So again, these are the stated corporate goals by the CEO. But if you look at each one of these goals, they nicely break down into the relevant departments. So more culturally relevant breaks down into chief marketing officer. Digitize and modernize, this goes to the CTO. Running great restaurants, this is operations, right? The company's economic model, that's the CFO. Supporting culture, that's the CPO. So if you look at most companies, the way they state their strategy is something like this, but as it breaks down, what you're doing is basically distributing these responsibilities into the organization as appropriate, right? And then I got a couple of examples of how these might cascade to the front line. For example, for marketing, you might want to increase social media engagement to 100 a day, right? Operations, increase customer satisfaction. Chief people officer might want to decrease, or this may be a restaurant level HR leader, or regional HR leader might be looking at decreasing employee turnover to less than 1.5%. So these high level strategies break down to the front level worker for them to set goals as well to help drive strategy. I'll cover one more thing. We're getting pretty close to finishing up here. Again, if you have ideas or questions, we have some time after this to chat, but drop them in the chat or write them down and we'll get to them in just a moment. So the mechanism that drives and sustains this whole thing is something we call a flywheel. It's very akin to Scrum, if you're familiar with Scrum methodology, right? Where you set up a regular cadence, and this could be weekly, could be daily, could be monthly, but weekly is usually where we encourage that people start. And per person, you just do a quick 60-second coaching cycle. And all you're asking is, what's your goal? What'd you do last and what'd you learn from it? And what you gonna try next? Right? And you go from person to person, and you do it round table style. So everybody gets a chance to answer those few questions. And here you got six people. That's really 6 minutes, right? A week. For such a small time commitment, the type of results you can generate are incredible. This accelerates learning. It accelerates achievement. It accelerates accountability. Really builds the entire functional team dynamic, right? The challenge that people face is the level of accountability that this brings. A lot of people struggle with. So, but at the same time, that's a problem you got to solve if we want to truly create a high performance organization. So what this leads to is, again, you start here, you create the annual plan. That's the dotted gray line. You go along your way, you start facing disruptions. You now have a mechanism where you can course correct. You can have those micro adjustments that a pilot would have to arrive at the destination on time. Enablers of success, frequent check-ins enable easier pivoting. One goal at a time per person maximizes focus. Shorter deadlines per goal increases sense of urgency, right? You don't have all year, you have 5 or 6 weeks, right, to get the next thing done. Frequent iteration results in faster learning, faster results, faster evolution, greater competitive advantage, et cetera, et cetera. A couple of companies that we've done this with, Sunbasket, Brook & Whittle, Peak Rysix, Associated Materials, Sunbasket, 50% reduction in changeover times, and they've done a lot more than this since then. Brook and Whittle, 56% reduction in overproduction. This is all in the first 6 weeks, and they've taken off and they've done incredible things as well. Peak Risix, 126% increase in capacity for a key account. They've been able to pick up a lot more new business. And Associated Materials, increase maintenance reporting, time reporting accuracy, 55%. They've also done a lot more with this and generated some really impressive results. Okay, if you want to learn more about agile strategy execution and the FIT process, FIT is both an adjective and an acronym. As an adjective, it's focus, iterate, and track. As an acronym, it's focus, iterate, and track. As an adjective, it means to become fit for what you're trying to achieve. So it's a little bit different from lean in the traditional sense, where lean is like just go eliminate waste. Fit is more first decide what you want to do, what you want to become, set your goal, and then be smart about how you go about it. So the analogy I use is a mountain climber definition of fit is different from a NFL quarterback's definition of fit, right? Two different goals, two different jobs, different areas of focus. So the book is available on Amazon. It released at #1 in 4 leadership categories: organizational change, management science, leadership training, quality management systems. Phenomenal book, lots of great reviews. I highly encourage you to go and check it out. Couple other resources for you. We also have the Impruver software. This is AI, continuous improvement, implement agile strategy execution across the organization. Also get a feed of improvement ideas from others like you. So this is AI-led, algorithm-led. You just, on your mobile device, you'll get a notification every few days saying, hey, here's an idea from somebody who is trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve. You might try this, you might not, it's up to you. Free for 6 users, so if you want to try it out, it's free forever. It's available on both mobile and web. We also have Impruver University, where you can find a whole slew of continuous improvement courses, certifications, and community. You can take those courses a la carte or via subscription. So feel free to check that out as well. Be a great resource for you. Okay, that is my talk. A little bit long, but I hope you found it valuable. You guys have any questions at this point?
So I'm going to take a look to see if anybody is raising their hand or unmuting themselves or chatting in the chat box. And while we're taking a look for that, Calvin, thank you. Really interesting. I am wondering, so here's my question, or maybe it's a hypothesis, but I love the whole idea of iteration and that regular and more frequent cadence. It occurs to me that a company culture has got to have a super huge level of comfort with uncertainty in that realm. I mean, is that true? Like, you got to get mature enough to just say, man, I'm not getting to my goal. Here's why. We got to be really vulnerable and okay with that, right?
I think you're right. There's a level of certainty required, but it's less of a uncertainty about the future, and more of a certainty about making less assumptions. Because a lot of time those plans are built on massive assumptions that sometimes happen in a small room with a few people that could end up being wrong and having organization-wide consequences. So what it's saying is pull back on the assumptions and start testing your way into the future and accounting for reality as you move into that. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Tanya, your hand is up.
Yes, Calvin, thank you for the great presentation. I see a lot of similarities between your approach and that of Pat Lencioni, somebody that I follow.
Yeah.
And
5 dysfunctions of a team.
That's right.
That
same guy. Yep.
Right.
So a question that I had for you was that a lot of the senior leadership, when they go to these visioning exercises, are looking at aspirational goals. I'll just pull an example from the safety industry. There was a big buzz a few years ago. I know Bob Latino would have been aware of this, that, zero injuries was stated as a visionary aspirational goal. Like, when you really got down to it, it's not as though zero was absolutely, attainable kind of a thing, but it did serve as a direction. And
Right.
I'm just wondering if your model can accommodate that kind of goal, that, it's not tangible in the sense of looking at, our, whatever kind of projections we made for this quarter or whatever, but it is leading you
Aspirational more.
towards something. Yes.
Right. Yeah. I would say certainly, like in the bigger view, as long as you got things moving in the right direction, you're doing well. And then there's a matter of speed and direction. So are we moving in the right direction? Are we moving fast enough in the right direction? Right. Those are the ultimate two things. And if you're satisfied with that, then you're winning. Now with agile strategy execution, we don't necessarily encourage leaders to say, hey, you didn't hit your number exactly, so, we're going to take some type of punitive or corrective action on performance, right? That's not the intent. But we do say, hey, set a goal that's realistic, achievable, at least short-term goal, so that once you've crossed that threshold, you can set the next goal, which at that point may be in a slightly different direction from the one you had set 6 weeks ago. So, and that's where the agility piece comes in at. So, if you stay locked into a zero safety incident goal and you leave no room for adjustment, what you're essentially doing is forcing yourself into a condition where you can't adapt, right? You can't change directions. Let's say safety no longer becomes the priority halfway in, and you need to go a different way. You'll never get to zero, so you'll never be able to make that pivot, right? So with agile, you actually want to achieve the goal before you look at the next goal. So, but yeah, I think at the highest level, challenge level, if that's the annual direction you want to take the company, I think that's good. Like I say, speed and direction is what's most important. But I think you also by making goals achievable within a 6 to 12 week time frame, you give yourself an opportunity to achieve that goal and then pivot toward the next most important thing to improve. So, yeah.
Tanya's right, and that's a very contentious thing in this community. But the two sides of it, to give you context, is that if you go for zero harm, like in a hospital, is that if you put that as a goal, then you'll probably people are not going to, they're going to start underreporting because they don't want to mess the goal up. And then you're going to have this illusion that you're safe, and because once you make it a goal, it's you can manipulate the number. But on the flip side of that, you can say, well, don't tie any performance metrics to it. Just have it as an aspiration, because you don't want absent making it an aspiration, you're going to accept a tolerance. I use the example, like if you have two competing hospitals in the same market, and one of them's got a big banner on the side of their hospital that says, zero harm is our vision, and the other one says, we're only going to kill 5 people this year. I mean, which hospital are you going? So,
for sure.
I mean, nobody wants to hurt anybody, but
Right.
I don't. This is my personal opinion. Is that shooting for zero is not a bad thing, but making it a requirement, and that that if you miss that target, you somehow failed, is not acceptable. So,
yeah. When it becomes a what you state internally from a management standpoint, hey, we're going to get to less than 5 incidents this quarter. That's one thing. What you state publicly is another thing, because when it's public, then it brings with it a lot more potential for risk and punitive consequences. So, like you say, zero incidents, 0 accidents is a great thing to state publicly, because it's almost more of a marketing thing than an actual management thing you can manage against. And sometimes metrics like that turn into what we call vanity metrics, right? They're there to make you look good and feel good, and then it turns into a thing where anybody who gets hurt,
Right.
just messed up our vanity metric. It made us all look bad. So you're more likely to hide the reality of how you're doing, in those situations. So I think on this side, though, agile strategy execution, the intent is not necessarily to be punitive, right? It's to provide direction, provide coaching, sort of provide almost like like dealing with teaching a 6-year-old how to shoot a basketball, right?
Yeah.
You just want to kind of be there with them and teach them what good looks like, and then model that behavior, and then correct them if necessary.
My quick question for you before I forget it is how do you protect against how do you institutionalize these principles when you have a high turnover rate? How do you make it part of the culture of an organization, given people revolving in and out of the same organization?
If you got a high turnover rate and you shouldn't, then that should definitely be somebody's goal, first of all, to address that. But I think, like the flywheel process where you're meeting weekly with your team, that's doable, and it's simple enough. Hey, what's your goal? What'd you do and what you learn from it? What you gonna do next? Driving that cadence and that accountability. Doesn't take a high learning curve to adopt that. What it does take is discipline, though. And discipline is the problem I think we're solving for.
Yeah.
Lack of discipline is very disruptive and dysfunctional. And it happens at every level in the company, from the C-suite to the front line. So what this is bringing is a level of discipline. Hey, focus on what's most important to improve. Have those regular meeting cadence, so that you can course correct as appropriate, right? Where people struggle with this is showing up on time and, doing these routine things when, as appropriate.
And I'm going to jump in here because I know, and Calvin, to follow the airplane metaphor that you had in your slides, we are running out of runway. So we have time for one more quick question, and then we do need to wrap up. And Cassandra chatted one in, and I'll read it quickly. Calvin, it's in an organization where we have 4 core values, 8 high-level objectives, 5 key focus areas, 3 enablers, and 12 business capabilities, which all feed into 35 organizational-wide strategic goals. And then there's parentheses. How do you recommend starting this and implementing this kind of approach?
Pick one goal, knock it out. If you can do 12 goals in a year, by logic, you could probably knock out 1 in a month, right? But there's a kind of a secret to that sauce too, is that by saying, hey, we're not going to focus on all 12, we're going to focus on 1, you end up getting it done in much less than a month. And because focus is also a factor. Lack of focus means that it's going to take a lot more time to get any one of them done. But with focus, you can achieve 1 in much less time, probably 80% of the time than you could without focus. So I would say start there and learn your way into it. Just like with anything else, the whole kind of the key message with this is learn through experimentation and experience, kind of take it as you go, and then continue to adapt and iterate and improve. So
love it. Thank you. And I am going to wrap us up because I know we are out of time. So Calvin, thank you very, very much for insights and wisdom. And thank you for, this is an unsolicited thing. I'm going to go buy the book because I'm really intrigued. So thank you very much. And everybody, as always, those of you that took time to join us today, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep, you're going to enjoy the book. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed writing it. It's great. It's a lot of great stories. So it'd be good. It'd be good for you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.